It was Mother's Day, and the sun was just beginning to rise when I received the photo that stopped my heart. My daughter, in front of the Eiffel Tower, hugging her grandmother with wide smiles, toasting with glasses of champagne. Paris, that city of dreams, seemed to bow before them. Meanwhile, I was at home, still in my pajamas at 8 in the morning, holding a small white ceramic plate bought at a flea market for a couple of bucks with an imperfectly hand-painted inscription, World's Best Mom. The scene was almost comical or tragic. On the other side of my phone screen, my ex-sister-in-law, or rather my adoptive mother-in-law, looked at me with watery eyes and, between sighs, begged me to keep sending my monthly contribution. Her voice sounded frail, almost childish, as if every penny I sent was the cure for all her ills. I swallowed hard, feeling a mix of anger, guilt, and a strange sense of pride. After all, I was the one financing those trips, those outings, all that pampering. But why, in the end, was the woman who should have been the great maternal inspiration in my daughter's life spending her time and my savings on luxuries while I struggled to keep a roof over our heads? My mind drifted back 3 years to when it all began. I was working 16 hours a day at two jobs, in the morning as a secretary at a law firm, in the afternoon as a private tutor for children. My daughter, Ana Clara, was only 15 and dreamed of visiting Europe. I saved every penny, kept coins in glass jars, clipped coupons, and made detailed spreadsheets of monthly expenses. My dream was to save enough money to take my daughter on a dream trip when she turned 18. Back then, my mother-in-law, Helen, was constantly complaining about loneliness. A widow for 5 years, she spent her days watching television and lamenting that no one visited her. When she found out I was saving money to travel with Ana Clara, her expression changed completely. "Honey," she said in that honeyed voice I knew so well, "you know Ana Clara needs a more experienced maternal figure at this difficult age. I could go with you, or better yet, I could take her with me. I have more time, more experience with teenagers." I should have been suspicious of that overly affectionate tone. Helen had never shown so much interest in her granddaughter. But the exhaustion from long working hours, the pressure of being a single mother, and constant financial worries made me let my guard down. When she suggested that I sent a monthly contribution to cover Ana Clara's activities, language courses, clothes suitable for a young woman who would soon be traveling, it seemed reasonable. "It's only temporary," she said. "When Ana Clara is independent, you won't have to worry about this anymore. Consider it an investment in her future." Every month, I transferred $100 to Helen's account, $100 that I took from my own sustenance, eating less, buying clothes at thrift stores, canceling weekend plans. Ana Clara started to change. Gradually, she started talking more about her grandmother than about me. "Grandma says Paris is much more interesting than Brazil," she'd comment during dinner. "Grandma thinks I should go to college in Europe." Each sentence was like a stab in the chest. I, who had raised my daughter alone since she was 3, who woke up at dawn to make her school lunches, who reviewed her school subjects alongside her to help her study. Helen had an impressive ability to manipulate situations. She always showed up at the house with expensive gifts for Ana Clara, an imported perfume, designer shoes, a handbag I could never afford. "Oh, honey," she'd say to me with a pitiful smile, "you work so hard, poor thing. Let me take care of these teenage treats." And to Ana Clara, she'd whisper, "Your mother is a warrior, but sometimes warriors need help." Her plan was brilliant and cruel at the same time. She established herself as the prosperous and generous maternal figure, while I became the hard-working mother who, out of love, gave up everything to support her daughter's whims. Ana Clara began to see my simplicity as a limitation, not as a sacrifice. My homemade gifts seemed poor compared to her grandmother's pampering. My words of encouragement sounded empty compared to Helen's grandiose promises. The height of the manipulation came when Helen announced that she had saved enough money to take Ana Clara on a 3-week trip to Europe. It's a unique opportunity, she argued. Ana Clara will have experiences that will mark her life forever. I knew exactly where that saved money came from my $100 monthly contributions over the past 2 years, plus what I had sent for emergencies and special opportunities. It wasn't just the money that hurt me, it was the silent betrayal, the way Helen had excluded me from the dream I had built myself. She didn't just steal my savings, she stole my place in my daughter's life. Ana Clara left for Paris without even questioning why I wasn't going along. To her, it was natural that her grandmother, who knew more about traveling, would be her companion on this adventure. While they were in Paris, I received photos every day. The Louvre, Montmartre, the Champs-Élysées. Ana Clara radiant, Helen posing with the air of a great lady of the world. And me, on the other side of the ocean, working to pay the bills that were piling up, because, obviously, I had stopped receiving the monthly contribution since the trip began. My routine had become a vicious cycle of work and bitterness. I woke up at 5 in the morning, made my black coffee, sugar had become a luxury, and went out to face another double shift. At night, I arrived home exhausted and checked social media, where Claire posted stunning photos of her European adventure. Her friends' comments were always the same. So lucky to have a grandma like that, or your family is amazing. I liked the photos with a strained smile, swallowing the pain of not being mentioned in any caption. The cruelest irony was that to keep up appearances, I had to pretend to be happy with the situation. When the neighbors asked about the trip, I replied with forced pride. They're having a lot of fun. Helen is a very generous person. I couldn't admit that I felt betrayed and used. I couldn't confess that I had financed my own exclusion. Helen had unwitting allies everywhere. My own sister, Paula, commented with admiration. "What an incredible grandmother-in-law you have. Few people would do that for a granddaughter." My coworkers sighed. "Your ex-mother-in-law is a sweetheart. Claire is a lucky girl." Each compliment was like salt in the wound. I wanted to scream, "I'm the one paying for all of this," but I couldn't. Helen had created a perfect narrative in which she was the generous heroine and I was just the hard-working supporting character. But it was on Mother's Day that Helen's mask began to fall. She called me from Paris, whining about how expensive the trip was. "Daughter," she said in that whiny voice I knew so well, "could you send me another $500? Claire wants to buy some souvenirs for her friends, and I don't want to disappoint the girl." $500 that I didn't have. $500 that would mean another week eating only rice and beans. That's when I looked at the $2 plate Claire had given me before leaving, a last-minute gift bought at the farmer's market while waiting for the taxi to the airport. "World's Best Mom," read the crooked and unpretentious inscription. That simple, imperfect object became a mirror of my own condition. While I was bending over backward to finance others' dreams, I received crumbs of recognition. At that moment, something broke inside me. It wasn't anger or resentment. It was a crystalline clarity about who I was and what I deserved. I wasn't a silent provider destined to work in the shadows while others shone in my light. I was a mother who had given everything, a woman who had sacrificed her own dreams to fulfill her daughter's dreams, and that deserved recognition, not exploitation. I picked up my phone and for the first time in 2 years said no to Helen. "I can't send any more money," I said with a firmness that surprised even myself. "I've already contributed beyond my means. You'll have to manage with what you have." On the other end of the line, an awkward silence. Helen wasn't used to hearing no. "But daughter," she tried to argue, "Claire will be disappointed. You don't want her to have good memories of the trip?" The manipulation was evident, but I didn't take the bait. "Claire is already having incredible experiences," I replied calmly, And if she wants souvenirs, she can use the money she saved from what I sent in the last few months. From that day on, I set clear boundaries. I stopped sending extra money. I stopped answering her whiny calls. I stopped pretending that everything was fine. When Claire called me complaining that her grandmother had cut back on some outings due to lack of funds, I calmly explained the real financial situation. My daughter, I said with a calmness I hadn't felt in years, for 2 years I sent you $100 a month so you could take this trip. That means I contributed almost $10,000 to this dream. Now it's time for you to enjoy it responsibly. Claire was silent for a few seconds. I could feel the weight of the revelation through the phone. Mom, she said finally, I didn't know you were paying for all of this. You weren't supposed to know, I replied. I wanted you to focus on enjoying the experience. But now that you know, I hope you understand the value of what you're experiencing. For the rest of the trip, Claire started including me in the conversations differently. She called me not only to tell me about the outings, but to thank me. Mom, today we went to the Musée d'Orsay, and I thought of you. I remembered when you took me to the City Museum every Sunday for free, and how you always said that art is priceless. Or, Mom, Grandma complained that the hotel is expensive, but I said you work hard to give us these opportunities. Helen, in turn, began to realize that she had lost control of the situation. Her attempts at manipulation became more desperate and, consequently, more obvious. She called me directly, ignoring Claire, trying to negotiate special conditions for future contributions. Daughter, she said with exaggerated sweetness, when we get back, we can talk about how to better organize this help. Maybe we can make a more efficient plan. But I had changed. The Mother's Day revelation had freed me from a toxic dynamic that I myself had fueled for years. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about recognition, respect, and honesty. Helen, I replied with icy courtesy, when you get back, we can talk about many things, including how you built this trip at my expense without giving me due credit. If you're following this story and identify with similar situations, subscribe to the channel to receive more reports like this, stories of women who discovered their inner strength and transformed their lives. The final confrontation happened a week after they returned from their trip. Helen came to my house with a proposal she thought was irresistible. Honey, how about we plan a trip for next year? I was thinking of Greece. Claire would love to see the Greek islands. She spoke with her usual confident tone, as if nothing had changed. I received her in the living room, where the inexpensive ceramic plate was prominently displayed on the shelf, next to some photos Claire had brought back from Paris. Helen, I began calmly, before we talk about future trips, we need to talk about the one that just happened. Her smile faltered. I want you to explain, I continued, how you managed to save almost $15,000 for a 3-week trip when you constantly complain that your retirement isn't enough to cover anything. Helen paled. And I want you to explain to Claire, in my presence, exactly where the money for this European adventure came from. It was one of the most embarrassing moments I've ever witnessed. Helen tried to deflect, then tried to minimize her responsibility, then tried to make me feel guilty for ruining Claire's happiness. But I didn't give in. I held my ground with a firmness that surprised even myself. Claire, who had arrived mid-conversation, listened in silence. When Helen finally admitted she had used my money to finance the trip, my daughter looked at me with an expression I'll never forget. It was a mixture of admiration, shame, and gratitude. Mom, she said finally, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were sacrificing so much for me. It's not about sacrifice, I replied. It's about honesty. I was willing to give up a lot to make your dreams come true, but I wasn't willing to be invisible in the process. Helen left my house that day with her tail between her legs, but not before trying one last shot. You'll regret treating me like this. I'm the only family Claire has besides you. That's when Claire spoke up for the first time. Claire said with a maturity that filled me with pride, Grandma, family isn't about money or trips. It's about who's there when you need them. And who's always been there is my mom. In the following months, my relationship with Claire transformed completely. She started working part-time to save money for college, saying she wanted to contribute instead of just receiving. She stopped accepting expensive gifts from her grandmother and began to appreciate our simple moments together. Our walks in the park, our movie nights at home, our late-night talks. Helen tried a few times to regain control of the situation, but she no longer had an audience. Claire had learned to question the motivations behind seemingly generous offers. She had understood that true love isn't measured in dollars or expensive gifts, but in presence, consistency, and silent sacrifice. The inexpensive ceramic plate became a powerful symbol in our home, not because it was cheap, but because it represented authenticity. It had been bought with love, not with ulterior motives. It had been given with love, not with expectation of return. It was imperfect, but it was real, just like our relationship. The deepest transformation, however, happened to me. I discovered that my tendency to silently sacrifice myself wasn't a virtue, it was a form of escape. By accepting invisibility, I avoided confrontation, but I also gave up my right to recognition. By allowing myself to be exploited, I sent the message that my worth was only functional, not personal. I learned that there's a fundamental difference between generosity and self-annihilation. Generosity is giving out of love, knowing you have worth. Self-annihilation is giving out of fear, believing you only have worth if you're useful. I had confused the two for years. Today, when Claire hugs me and says, "Thank you," I know she's talking about much more than money or opportunities. She's thanking me for having the courage to stand my ground, for teaching her that true love demands honesty, for showing her that it's possible to be generous without being invisible. The inexpensive ceramic plate remains on our shelf, but now it shares space with photos of our own adventures, simple but authentic trips that we planned and financed together. Each photo tells a story of real complicity, not disguised manipulation. Sometimes, when I walk past the living room and see that simple plate, I smile. Not because I remember the pain, but because I remember the transformation. On that Mother's Day, when I received a small, inexpensive gift while financing a $15,000 trip, I could have felt diminished. Instead, I chose to feel valued. Because the value of a gift isn't in the price, but in the intention. And the intention behind that plate was pure. A daughter who, even dazzled by European adventures, remembered the mother who stayed home. A daughter who, with her simple gesture, gave me the strength to claim my place in my own story. Helen still tries, occasionally, to regain control. But now she knows she won't find a woman desperate for approval. She'll find a mother who knows her worth, who sets clear boundaries, and who isn't afraid to be seen as difficult when she's just being fair. The most powerful lesson I learned is that we can't control the actions of others, but we can control our reaction to them. I can't prevent people from trying to manipulate me, but I can choose not to be manipulated. I can't force recognition, but I can stop accepting disrespect. That inexpensive ceramic plate has become more than just an object. It's a daily reminder that true love doesn't need extravagance to be powerful. It's proof that sometimes the simplest gestures carry the deepest messages. And it's the symbol of a woman who learned that being a mother doesn't mean being invisible, that being generous doesn't mean being exploited, and that being strong doesn't mean being silent. Today, when Claire asks me about future plans, I answer confidently. We'll build our dreams together with honesty and mutual respect. And when she smiles and points to the plate on the shelf, I know she understands the lesson. The value isn't in the price, but in the truth. And our truth, however simple, is worth more than any adventure built on lies. So, the inexpensive ceramic plate remains there, humble and imperfect, yet powerful in its simplicity. It reminds me every day that I am a woman who deserves to be seen, a mother who deserves to be recognized, and a person who has the right to exist fully in her own story. And that truly is priceless.